my name is Jean Keener, and I'm the founder of Keener Financial Planning. And I am here with some of our other lead planners from our firm, and they're going to introduce themselves in a minute. We wanted to reach out to you today because we just completed a series of book clubs with our clients on Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. We had some great conversations. And so we just wanted to share the highlights with you because we know that a lot of our clients were not able to join us due to scheduling. And we've had a lot of requests for people to learn what were some of the key discussion items. So we will start with doing introductions of the other planners, and we're each just going to share some of the things we thought were most interesting. Beth, do you want to share?
Sure, I'll start. So I'm Beth Shurtz, and I was a part of the Dallas group that met, and we did have some really interesting conversations. I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways is everybody in our group, nobody really wanted to die with zero. So we'll say that, and I concur with that. But I'd say it's more about dying with zero regret and to really be intentional about how you're spending your money at what phase of life you're in. So to me, that was kind of the biggest takeaway, are those time buckets of life. Is looking, realistically, is when you have more energy is when you really want to think about, the world travel and making sure that you don't look back on that and regret that you did take advantage of that time in your life. So I'd say that was my big one.
Cool. Okay. Trista, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Trista Jacobs. I guess my biggest takeaway was just to be intentional about how we're spending time and money. They're very closely related. And not to just think I want to save as much as possible at the expense of my current self. So some things like that you can think about is, do I really want to groom my own dog and save this much money, or is that something okay to have pay a professional to do that? So some of those things that just got me to thinking about being intentional about spending and saving now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Samuel Pond. I was part of the Zoom book club, and we had a lot of discussions about same sort of things, being intentional with our money. I feel like we touched on more kind of what Trista talked about, of not sacrificing things now if they're not really going to have large impacts, and kind of being more deliberate with what we want to spend our money on, and kind of being deliberate with when we travel, when is kind of the optimal time to create memories, that when kids are older or younger, is that in our retirement, or is that after we pass away we're leaving things to our loved ones or to charities, or kind of thinking more about when is the best impact going to be made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was interesting because on the intentional example, which I think everyone touched on, the book used the idea of the daily latte as not being intentional, but we heard from several clients in a couple of the different groups that they actually really like going to get their daily coffee, and it's kind of just a moment that they cherish, that like, hey, I'm taking a little time for myself today. So I thought that was pretty cool. One of the things in our book club is we did not treat this book as a textbook. We wanted to use it as a jumping off point for ideas that might help influence people's financial planning. So I'm curious what stood out to each of you on kind of takeaways that people said, hey, as a result of reading this, I might do something differently. Anything stand out as you think back on the sessions we had?
I think considering the travel plans that you want to have, or things that are on kind of the bucket list,
Mm-hmm.
just to be intentional on, is this realistic to put this off, or do I really need to schedule this earlier?
Mm-hmm.
I had a client who had read the book, who wasn't a part of the book club, but had read it previously, and she saw it on my desk when she came in for a meeting, and she was talking about some things that she wanted to do with her money when she passed away, bequests to some charities. We referenced back to the book and talked about giving it now, and just kind of changing her estate planning documents to kind of account for the fact that some of these charities and people would have already received some money. And she thought that she would actually prefer to do that and kind of see the enjoyment that the charities or the people were going to receive from her money.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I'd say that one that's kind of stood out to me, and this is really more geared towards folks that are higher net worth for sure. But she mentioned an expression that I had heard quite a bit growing up, was never touch principal.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, at this point in her life, I think she and her husband are probably in their 60s, and I think she's really questioning that and why that needs to be adhered to, and saying like, no, I am going to go ahead and you know, buy a new car that I really want, or enjoy it more. So I thought that was a very good reminder that just because you heard this adage maybe growing up, that you know, it's not necessarily something you need to live by.
Yeah, that's great. And for me, I think the most common takeaway was what you mentioned, Samuel, and other people have touched on, is that giving money to charity or to kids earlier, right? And maybe not with the goal of getting to zero, right? But just kind of doing it a little bit earlier on and letting yourself enjoy, you know, seeing the good of that. And then also, well, some people actually like the idea of seeing what their kids did with it. Like, did they use it wisely? And that was an opportunity for more discussion there. And then I know another client mentioned that as a result of this, she had a 10-year list of travel plans. She reordered them. Yeah, she thought about, hey, what do I want to do, you know, at these various times, and how much physical health will it require, and completely rearrange the list. I thought that was pretty impactful as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, great. So anything else that you guys want to comment on before we wrap up today?
That's interesting read.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. One last thing we'll talk about is the book does mention some of the specific tools for financial planning. And we did not spend a lot of time on these in the session, really just because people's situations are so different. But some of the ideas were maybe reconsidering long-term care insurance, or maybe looking at income-based annuities, or maybe being willing in your Monte Carlo probability of success in your financial plan to let that probability of success go a little bit lower if you're willing to make adjustments potentially down the road. And so if that's something that is interesting to you and you want to talk about it when you come in for your next financial planning meeting, we would love to have that conversation and really talk about how to apply the concepts in the book based on how you see it and what would really be the most meaningful in your situation. So anyway, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to visiting with you about this at your next meeting, or if you have other ideas for other book clubs that you think would be interesting to discuss with other financial planning clients, we'd love to hear those as well. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thanks.